Story 1. Wanda Jean Allen was born on August 17, 1959, in Oklahoma. She grew up in a poor neighborhood in Oklahoma City. Her family did not have much money. She had siblings, but the exact number is not clearly known from public records. When Wanda was a young child, she suffered serious head injuries. At age 12, she was hit by a truck. The accident knocked her unconscious. At age 14 or 15, she was stabbed in the left temple. These head injuries caused damage to her brain. Later tests would show that she had trouble understanding cause and effect. She also had difficulty expressing herself clearly. Wanda did not do well in school. When she was 15 years old, a psychologist tested her IQ. Her score was 69. A score of 70 or below is considered mentally retarded. The same psychologist recommended that Wanda receive a neurological assessment. The doctor believed she showed signs of brain damage. However, she never received that assessment or any special treatment for her condition. At age 16, Wanda dropped out of high school. She never finished her classes. Later in life, she would claim that she had graduated from high school and completed some college courses. But that was not true. She had not finished high school, and she did not complete a medical assistant program she had started. As a teenager, Wanda was placed in foster care. Later, she was sent to a state juvenile facility. A psychological evaluation at that time noted that she had serious mental disabilities. The report said she had a marked inability to cope with a variety of complex situations. The psychologist recommended protective control and training for her. But Wanda did not receive that help. When Wanda became a young adult, she lived in Oklahoma City. She had friends in her neighborhood. One of those friends was a girl named Deetra Pettis. They grew up together and had mutual friends. On June 29, 1981, something happened that changed Wanda's life. She was 21 years old. That day, she got into an argument with Deetra Pettis. The argument also involved Deetra's boyfriend. At some point, Wanda shot Deetra. The shooting happened in a grocery store parking lot. Deetra was pistol whipped and shot at point-blank range. She died from her wounds. Wanda was arrested and charged with first-degree manslaughter. She was convicted and sentenced to 4 years in prison. She served part of that sentence and was released in 1984. While she was in prison, she met a woman named Gloria Jean Leathers. Gloria was also an inmate. They became friends, or possibly more than friends, though Wanda later said they did not have a relationship inside. After Wanda got out of prison in 1984, she was on parole. She tried to rebuild her life. She was a Baptist and considered herself a family person. She liked to read, draw, and listen to jazz music. She also enjoyed playing tennis, golf, and basketball. In 1985 or 1986, after Gloria Leathers was released from prison, she called Wanda. Gloria had family problems and did not have a place to stay. Wanda remembered how hard it was to get out of prison and find housing. So she allowed Gloria to come and live with her. They lived together on and off for about 3 years. During that time, they had a lesbian relationship. Wanda later described it simply as part of their lives. She said it did not make either of them less human than anyone else. Their relationship was not calm. They had arguments. Both women called the police to their home more than once after domestic disputes. Police reports were filed. Wanda had trouble controlling her emotions when she was under stress. Her past head injuries made her more vulnerable to becoming disorganized and losing control during arguments. At the same time, Wanda tried to hold a job and manage her money. She was able to function in daily life to some degree. But people around her could see that she had difficulty with logic and expressing herself. Her behavior worried those who knew her. By late 1988, the tension between Wanda and Gloria was growing worse. Something was about to happen that would end both their lives in different ways. The tension between Wanda Jean Allen and Gloria Jean Leathers came to a breaking point on December 1st, 1988. That day, the two women went to a grocery store together. While they were inside the store, they got into a dispute. The argument was reportedly about money, though some sources say it was about other issues in their relationship. The argument did not end at the store. A police officer from the Village Police Department in northwest Oklahoma City was called to the scene. The officer stepped in and tried to calm the situation. He then escorted both women back to the house where they lived together. The officer stood by while Gloria collected her belongings. She had decided to leave Wanda for good. At some point, the police officer was called away to another duty. He left the scene. Gloria did not stay at the house. She had called her mother, Ruby Wilson, to come pick her up. Ruby Wilson arrived at the house. Gloria packed her things into her mother's car. Wanda watched this happen. She believed Gloria was leaving her permanently. Wanda had written a letter to Gloria at some point before this day. In that letter, she wrote that she was the type of person who would hunt down someone she loved and kill them. She added, "Do I make myself clear, Gloria?" The letter also contained a card with a gorilla on it. The printed message on the card said, "Patience my ass. I am going to kill something." Inside the card, Wanda had written, "Try and leave me, and you will understand this card more. Dig. For real, no joke." Gloria and her mother got into the car and drove away from the house. They did not go straight home. Instead, Ruby Wilson drove her daughter to the village police department. Gloria intended to file a complaint against Wanda. The nature of the complaint is not fully clear, but Ruby Wilson later said Gloria wanted to report that Wanda had stolen some of her clothes. Wanda did not stay at the house. She followed Gloria and her mother. She got into her own car, or possibly walked or drove behind them. The exact method of travel is not detailed, but she arrived at the police station shortly after they did. When Ruby Wilson pulled the car up to the police station, Gloria began to get out of the passenger side. The station was located in a building in the village area. 2 police officers and a dispatcher were inside the station at that time. However, none of them were standing outside watching the parking lot area. Wanda approached the car. She was wearing a sweatshirt. Her hands were hidden underneath the sweatshirt. In her hands, she was holding a .38 caliber handgun. Ruby Wilson later described that Wanda walked up with her hands under the sweatshirt. Wanda and Gloria exchanged words. The exact words are not fully recorded, but Ruby Wilson said that before firing, Wanda said, "If I can't have you, nobody can." Gloria was leaning back into the car to pick up her purse. At that moment, Wanda pressed the gun against Gloria's side, near her ribs or stomach. She then pulled the trigger. Ruby Wilson said the gunshot sounded like a cap gun. The bullet struck Gloria Jean Leathers in the abdomen at very close range. Gloria slumped back into the car. She was still alive but badly wounded. Ruby Wilson witnessed the entire shooting. She saw her daughter get shot. Wanda did not stay at the scene. She fled right after firing the gun. Police officers inside the station heard the gunshot. They came outside to investigate. They found Gloria wounded in the car and her mother crying for help. Gloria was taken to a hospital for emergency surgery. 2 police officers and a dispatcher heard the shot, but none of them saw the shooting happen. They only saw the aftermath. The police later searched the area near the women's home. They recovered a .38 caliber handgun that they believed was the weapon used in the shooting. After fleeing the scene, Wanda left Oklahoma City. She traveled to Duncan, Oklahoma, which is about 80 miles southwest of Oklahoma City. She went there to hide or to get away from the police. For 4 days, she was not in custody. Meanwhile, Gloria Jean Leathers was in the hospital. The bullet wound to her abdomen was severe. Doctors tried to save her life through surgery, but the damage was too great. On December 5th, 1988, 4 days after the shooting, Gloria Jean Leathers died from her wound. She was 29 years old. Before she died, Gloria was able to speak to the police from her hospital bed. She told them that Wanda Jean Allen was the person who shot her. This statement was recorded as a dying declaration. On the same day Gloria died, December 5, 1988, police arrested Wanda Jean Allen in Duncan, Oklahoma. She was taken into custody without further incident. 2 hours after her arrest, Gloria died. At the time of her arrest, police photographed Wanda. The photographs showed visible wounds on her face. Those wounds came from a hand rake that Gloria had struck her with during the earlier argument at the house. Wanda would later claim that she acted in self-defense because Gloria had hit her with the rake and then came at her again outside the police station. However, no witness confirmed that Gloria attacked Wanda outside the station. On December 7, 1988, Wanda Jean Allen was formally charged with first-degree murder. At the time, she was 29 years old. She was on probation from her earlier manslaughter conviction for killing Deetra Pettis in 1981. That prior conviction meant she was still under state supervision when she shot Gloria. Wanda's family hired a lawyer named Robert Carpenter to represent her. Carpenter was a solo practitioner. He had never tried a capital murder case before. He agreed to take the case for 5,000, believing Jitwood B manslaughter charge. The family paid him an initial 5,000, believing Jitwood B manslaughter charge. The family paid him an initial 800. But then the prosecution announced they would seek the death penalty. Carpenter asked the judge to let him withdraw from the case because he was not qualified and did not have the resources. He offered to stay on as co-counsel for free if a public defender was appointed as lead counsel. The prosecution opposed his motion. The judge refused to let Carpenter withdraw. He was forced to represent Wanda with only $800, no co-counsel, no investigator, and no money to hire expert witnesses. The trial was set for April 1989. Wanda remained in jail waiting for her day in court. The prosecution prepared to argue that she had planned the killing, pointing to the threatening letter she had written to Gloria and the fact that she followed her to the police station with a hidden gun. The defense planned to argue self-defense, claiming Gloria had a history of violence. The shooting happened directly in front of the village police department, so the discovery of the crime was immediate. Police officers inside the station heard the gunshot at once. They ran outside and found Gloria Jean Leathers slumped in the passenger seat of her mother's car. Ruby Wilson was screaming for help. The officers called an ambulance, and Gloria was rushed to a hospital. The police did not have to search for a suspect for long. Ruby Wilson gave a statement right there at the scene. She told the officers that Wanda Jean Allen had walked up to the car, hidden a gun under her sweatshirt, and shot Gloria in the stomach. Ruby also reported what Wanda said before firing. "If I can't have you, nobody can." The police immediately began looking for Wanda. They also went back to the house where the two women had lived together. Near that house, officers found a .38 caliber handgun. They matched it to the bullet that struck Gloria. The gun was the same weapon Wanda had used. While Gloria was in the hospital, still alive but badly wounded, a police officer spoke with her. Gloria named Wanda Jean Allen as the person who shot her. This statement was recorded. Because Gloria later died from her wound, her statement was treated as a dying declaration. Under the law, a dying declaration can be used as evidence in court. As described in Part 2, police arrested Wanda in Duncan, Oklahoma, on December 5, 1988. After the arrest, investigators continued gathering evidence. They found the threatening card and letter that Wanda had written to Gloria. The card had a gorilla on it and said, "Patience my ass. I am going to kill something." Inside, Wanda had written that if Gloria tried to leave her, she would understand the card. Prosecutors saw this as proof that Wanda had planned to kill Gloria if she left. The case went to trial in April 1989 in Oklahoma County. The prosecution presented several key pieces of evidence. First, Ruby Wilson testified as an eyewitness. She described exactly how Wanda walked up to the car and shot her daughter. Second, the police officer who spoke to Gloria at the hospital testified about Gloria's dying declaration. Third, the .38 caliber handgun was shown to the jury. Fourth, the threatening card and letter were read aloud. Fifth, the prosecution told the jury that Wanda had previously been convicted of manslaughter in 1981 for killing Deetra Pettis. The defense tried to argue self-defense. Wanda took the stand and testified that Gloria had hit her in the face with a hand rake at the house. She said the wounds on her face proved this. She also claimed that outside the police station, Gloria came at her again with the rake, so she fired the gun to protect herself. However, no witness saw Gloria holding a rake outside the station. Ruby Wilson did not see any rake. The police did not find a rake at the scene. The jury did not believe the self-defense claim. The defense also wanted to tell the jury that Gloria had a violent past. In 1979, Gloria had been arrested in Tulsa for stabbing a woman named Sheila Marie Barker to death outside a disco. A judge had ruled that killing was self-defense. The defense wanted to use this to show that Gloria was the aggressive one. But the prosecution objected, and the judge refused to allow that testimony. The jury never heard about Gloria's prior stabbing. On April 19, 1989, the jury found Wanda Jean Allen guilty of first-degree murder. After the guilty verdict, the same jury had to decide whether she would receive life in prison or the death penalty. In this penalty phase, the prosecution again brought up the 1981 manslaughter of Deetra Pettis. They argued that Wanda had killed twice and would kill again. The defense did not present any evidence about Wanda's low IQ or brain damage from her childhood head injuries. Her lawyer, Robert Carpenter, had not searched for those medical records. He did not ask for a psychological evaluation. The jury never learned that Wanda had an IQ of 69 or that she had suffered severe head trauma as a child. After only 2 hours of deliberation, the jury decided on the death penalty. The judge sentenced Wanda to death. After the sentence, Wanda Jean Allen began a long series of appeals. Her first appeal was denied by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals on February 15, 1994. She then filed for post-conviction relief, which was denied on December 27, 1995. She appealed to the United States Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit in Denver, Colorado. On January 11, 2000, that court denied her appeal. She then asked the United States Supreme Court to review her case. The Supreme Court said no on October 2, 2000. Wanda also asked for a clemency hearing before the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board. That hearing took place on December 15, 2000, at the Lexington Assessment and Reception Center. Wanda's lawyers argued that she was mentally retarded, with an IQ measured at 69 when she was 15. They also argued that her trial lawyer was ineffective because he was paid only $800, had never tried a capital case, and had no investigator or expert witnesses. The board heard testimony from ministers and supporters. Wanda herself spoke and asked for forgiveness from Gloria's family. She also said, "Please let me live." The board voted 3-1 against recommending clemency. One member voted in favor of sparing her life. On January 11, 2001, Governor Frank Keating considered a request for a 30-day stay of execution. He met with the Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Oklahoma Attorney General. After reviewing the case, Keating denied the stay. He said the courts had looked at the case for 12 years and that Wanda had filed 11 different appeals. He stated that she knew right from wrong. That same evening, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to intervene one last time. The 10th Circuit Court of Appeals also rejected a final appeal. The execution was carried out at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester shortly after 9 p.m. on January 11, 2001. Wanda Jean Allen was strapped to a gurney. A chaplain read from the Bible. Wanda smiled at her attorneys and spiritual advisors. She stuck her tongue out playfully at them. Her last words were, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Then she was given a lethal injection. She was pronounced dead at 9:15 p.m. or 9:21 p.m., according to different reports. After the execution, the families of both victims spoke. Ruby Wilson, Gloria's mother, had already forgiven Wanda during a meeting on October 13, 2000. Wilson raised Gloria's 3 children. She said she did not hate Wanda, but she hated what Wanda did. Gloria's brother, Robert Ferguson Jr., said justice had been served. The family of Deetra Pettis, Wanda's first victim, issued a statement saying it had taken 20 years and a second murder to get the death penalty. Wanda Jean Allen became the first woman executed in Oklahoma since statehood in 1907. She was the 6th woman executed in the United States since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. She was the first black woman executed in America since 1954. The story of Wanda Jean Allen ended on that gurney in McAlester, with her final breath taken by the state she had called home. Story 2. Floyd Allen Medlock was born on October 9, 1970. His birth mother was a woman whose name is not widely reported. He did not have a stable home from a very young age. His parents separated or divorced early in his life. He spent much of his childhood moving between relatives and different houses. When Floyd was still a young boy, his mother married a man named Norm. Norm became Floyd's stepfather. The family lived together in different states, including Nevada and California. Floyd did not have a happy home life with his mother and stepfather. From a young age, Floyd was physically hurt by the adults who were supposed to care for him. His stepfather beat him with a garden hose. This happened more than once. Floyd was also locked inside a closet by his mother. He was kept there for long periods. A babysitter who watched him sometimes put him in a dark basement and left him there alone. These events made Floyd feel scared and angry. Floyd had trouble in school and with other children. He did not have many friends. He kept to himself most of the time. As he grew older, he started to have very dark thoughts. He felt that people had treated him badly, and he did not know how to deal with those feelings. When Floyd was 10 years old, he tried to end his own life. He found a shotgun in the house. He loaded the gun with cartridges. He put the gun to himself and pulled the trigger. The cartridges did not fire. The gun did not go off. Floyd survived. No one took him to get help for his mental state after this event. As a teenager, Floyd tried again to hurt himself. He took a sharp object and tried to cut his own wrists. He wanted to make the pain stop. Again, he did not die. He was left with scars on his wrists. Still, no one got him proper mental health care. Floyd's mind began to develop in a very troubled way. He later told doctors that he heard a voice inside his head. The voice had a name. He called the voice Charlie. Charlie sounded like a young boy of about 12 years old. Charlie was full of anger. Charlie told Floyd to do violent things. Floyd felt that he could not always control what Charlie wanted. When Floyd was a teenager, he moved to Nevada for a time. He lived with his sister in Fresno, California, at another point. While living with his sister, he became afraid of his own thoughts. He had thoughts about hurting his sister's 2 daughters, who were young girls. He did not act on these thoughts. Instead, he chose to move out of his sister's house. He left because he was scared of what the voice in his head might tell him to do. Floyd did not finish much school. He worked low-paying jobs. He worked at restaurants and other simple places. He did not have a steady relationship with a girlfriend or wife. He spent most of his time alone. He watched television, especially cartoons, because they made him feel calm. By the time Floyd was 19 years old, he was living by himself in an apartment complex called Wood Oaks Apartments. The apartments were in Yukon, Oklahoma. Yukon is a small town about 10 miles west of Oklahoma City. Floyd's apartment was number 406 in that complex. He worked at a restaurant nearby. He went to work, came home, watched TV, and stayed out of trouble with the law. But inside his mind, Charlie was still there waiting. On the afternoon of February 19th, 1990, Floyd Medlock was inside his apartment, number 406, at the Wood Oaks Apartments in Yukon, Oklahoma. He was sitting on his sofa watching cartoons on television. He was alone. The time was sometime after school hours. A young girl named Catherine and Bush was riding her bicycle around the apartment complex. She was 7 years old. She lived in the same complex with her mother, Gina Ford. Catherine had lived in apartment 406 before, when her parents were still together. Her family had moved out of that unit and into a different unit in the same complex. But Catherine remembered the old apartment. As Catherine rode her bike, she stopped near apartment 406. She went up to the door. She tried to open the door or jiggled the doorknob. Floyd heard the noise. He got up and opened the door. Catherine walked into the apartment without being invited to stay. She told Floyd that she used to live in this apartment. Then she said she was hungry and wanted something to eat. Floyd did not force her inside. He let her stay. He gave her potato chips to eat while he prepared food for her. He decided to make macaroni and cheese. He went to the kitchen and began cooking. Catherine sat down or stood nearby. While Floyd was cooking, he later told police, a strange feeling came over him. He said something clicked in his mind. The voice he called Charlie began to speak to him inside his head. Charlie was angry. Charlie told Floyd to hurt the girl. Floyd said it felt like he was watching himself on a television screen. He did not feel in control anymore. Floyd stopped cooking. He grabbed Catherine by the arm. She pulled away. He grabbed her again. She pulled away a second time. Then he grabbed her more forcefully. She began to scream. Floyd put his hand over her mouth to stop the sound. He started to choke her with his hands. He choked her until she passed out and stopped moving. Catherine regained consciousness. She was still alive, but she was hurt and scared. Floyd did not let her go. He dragged her from the main room into his bathroom. Once they were inside the bathroom, Floyd forced Catherine's head down into the toilet bowl. He held her head under the water. He kept her head in the toilet bowl for approximately 10 minutes. During that time, she was gasping for breath. She struggled to pull her head up. She managed to lift her head out of the water a few times, gasping for air. Each time, Floyd pushed her head back down. After holding her head in the toilet, Floyd got a steak knife from the kitchen or from somewhere else in the apartment. He brought the knife back to the bathroom. While Catherine was still alive, Floyd stabbed her in the back of her neck with the steak knife. He stabbed her with force. The steak knife broke from the force of the stabbing. He had stabbed her at least once, possibly more times. He also stabbed her near her eye. Floyd then went to his bedroom. He kept a hunting knife under his pillow. He retrieved that hunting knife and returned to the bathroom. He pushed Catherine's head back down into the toilet bowl so that she would not bleed onto the bathroom floor. Then he took the hunting knife and stabbed her again in the back of her neck. He stabbed her repeatedly until she died. After Catherine was dead, Floyd removed her body from the toilet. He placed her in the bathtub. He turned on the water and washed her body. Then he removed her clothes. While her body was in the tub, he attempted to sexually molest her. She was already dead at this point. The molestation happened after death, not before. Floyd then took a blanket and wrapped Catherine's body inside it. He placed the wrapped body into a large box. The box had originally held a television. He sealed the box or closed it. That night, after dark, Floyd took the box and Catherine's bicycle to a nearby dumpster. The dumpster was behind a shopping center or a drugstore, about 3 blocks from the apartment complex. He lifted the box into the dumpster. He left the bicycle outside the dumpster, leaning against it or lying nearby. Floyd went back to his apartment. He cleaned up the bathroom and the other rooms. He washed the knives or disposed of them. He kept the hunting knife with him. He did not call the police that night. The next day, February 20th, 1990, Floyd went to work at his restaurant job. While at work, he heard 2 of his co-workers talking about the murder of the little girl. The co-workers said that if the killer was not caught, he would probably kill again. Another co-worker said that whoever killed the child should be nailed to a stump. Floyd felt afraid. He also said later that he felt remorse. He was afraid that the voice in his head, Charlie, would make him kill again. Floyd left the restaurant. He went to a telephone booth at a convenience store near the apartment complex. He called the police. He told the operator that he was the person who killed the little girl. He gave his location. Police officers arrived at the store. Floyd was standing at the side of the building. He was carrying the hunting knife he had used to stab Catherine. He handed the knife to the police. He told them, "I am the one you are looking for." On the evening of February 19th, 1990, Catherine's mother, Gina Ford, realized her daughter had not come home. Catherine had gone out to ride her bicycle in the afternoon. By 7 p.m., she was still missing. Gina called the Yukon Police Department to report that her 7-year-old daughter was gone. The police officers on duty said they were busy with other calls. They did not start searching for Catherine right away. Several hours passed. Finally, the police began to search the area. They set up a command post near the Woodokes apartments. Officers spread out across Yukon. They checked streets, parks, and other places a child might go. One deputy officer searched behind a drugstore located about 3 blocks from the apartment complex. Behind the drugstore, there was a large dumpster. The deputy saw a child's bicycle near the dumpster. It was pink and white. He called for his supervisor. Detective Major Jim McDaniel arrived at the dumpster. He was the lead investigator on the case. He looked inside the dumpster. He saw a large box. He reached into the dumpster and opened the box. Inside, wrapped in a blanket, was the body of a young girl. He touched her arm. It was cold. The girl was dead. The time was early in the morning of February 20th, 1990. Police officers secured the area. Medical examiners came to the scene. They examined the body and confirmed that the girl had been stabbed, beaten, and sexually molested. The cause of death was determined to be stab wounds to the neck. The victim was identified as Catherine and Bush. News of the murder spread quickly. The small town of Yukon was shocked by how brutal the crime was. Later that same day, February 20th, 1990, Floyd Medlock was at work at his restaurant job. He heard co-workers talking about the murder. They said the killer should be caught and punished harshly. One co-worker said the killer should be nailed to a stump. Medlock became afraid. He left the restaurant and went to a telephone booth at a convenience store. He called the police and told them he was the killer. He gave his location. Police officers drove to the convenience store. They found Medlock standing outside the building. He was holding a hunting knife. He handed the knife to the officers. He said, "I am the one you are looking for." The officers arrested him on the spot. They took him to the police station for questioning. At the police station, Detective McDaniel interviewed Medlock. Medlock sat in an interview room. He smoked cigarettes and spoke calmly. He agreed to make a videotaped confession. On the tape, he described everything he had done. He explained how Catherine came to his door, how he made food for her, and how the voice he called Charlie told him to hurt her. He described the choking, the toilet, the knives, and the dumpster. He showed no visible emotion during the confession. The police also recovered the broken steak knife from his apartment. Medlock was charged with first-degree murder. Because the victim was a young child, the prosecutor sought the death penalty. The case went to court in Canadian County, Oklahoma. Medlock did not fight the charges. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in front of Judge Edward Cunningham. By pleading guilty, Medlock gave up his right to a jury trial. The judge alone would decide whether Medlock would receive life in prison or the death penalty. During the sentencing phase, the court heard from mental health experts. A psychiatrist testified that Medlock had a split personality, also called dissociative identity disorder. The psychiatrist said Medlock had an alternate personality named Charlie, who was an angry 12-year-old boy. The psychiatrist said this condition came from the severe abuse Medlock suffered as a child, including being locked in closets, beaten with a hose, and left in basements. The psychiatrist said that Charlie took control during the murder. The prosecution argued that Medlock knew right from wrong. They pointed out that he had hidden the body, cleaned the apartment, and gone to work the next day. They said these actions showed he understood what he did was wrong and tried to avoid getting caught. The prosecution also noted that Medlock had previous violent urges, including setting a fire in Nevada and moving out of his sister's house because he wanted to hurt her daughters. The victim's family members spoke in court. Judy Bush, Catherine's paternal grandmother, gave a statement. She described how much she loved Catherine and how the murder had destroyed part of her life. She asked the judge to impose the death penalty. Johnny Cabrera, Catherine's maternal grandmother, also attended the trial. She sat on the side of the courtroom near Medlock's family. She later approached Medlock's stepfather and told him she did not blame him for what Medlock did. On March 28, 1991, Judge Edward Cunningham issued his sentence. The judge ruled that Medlock should receive the death penalty. The judge found that the murder was especially heinous, atrocious, and cruel. The victim was only 7 years old. The judge also noted that Medlock had sexually molested the body after death. Medlock was sent to death row at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester, Oklahoma. Medlock filed appeals over the next several years. His lawyers argued that his mental illness meant he should not be executed. The Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals reviewed the case multiple times. In 1994, 1995, and 1996, the appeals court upheld the death sentence. Medlock then appealed to federal court. The 10th Circuit Court of Appeals also upheld the sentence in the year 2000. The United States Supreme Court declined to hear his final appeal. Throughout his time on death row, Medlock did not seek clemency. Clemency is when the governor or a board reduces a sentence. Medlock chose not to ask for mercy. He did not file any emergency appeals to stop his execution. He accepted that he would be put to death. He exchanged letters with Johnny Cabrera, Catherine's maternal grandmother. She asked him questions about the crime, and he answered her. She forgave him. He told her in one letter that he was ready to die. The execution date was set for January 16, 2001. On that evening, Medlock was taken from his cell to the execution chamber at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. Witnesses were present on both sides of a glass partition. On one side sat Judy Bush, Catherine's paternal grandmother, along with other family members who supported the death penalty. On the other side sat Johnny Cabrera, who had come as a guest of Medlock. Also present were prison officials, media representatives, and a chaplain. At 9:20 p.m., the lethal injection was administered. The drugs flowed into Medlock's veins. He stopped breathing. His heart stopped. He was pronounced dead. He was 30 years old. He became the 688th person executed in the United States since 1976, and the 33rd person executed in Oklahoma since that year. After the execution, Medlock's body was removed from the chamber. The prison released a statement confirming the time of death. The case was officially closed. Judy Bush said she felt a sense of peace and that Medlock could never hurt another child. Johnny Cabrera said she remained opposed to the death penalty and felt sad that another life had been taken. Catherine and Bush remained buried in Rest Haven Cemetery in Oklahoma City, with her teddy bear beside her and a small marker that reads, "Daddy's little girl is now playing in God's garden." The story of Floyd Allen Medlock and Catherine and Bush ended on January 16, 2001, when Medlock took his last breath inside the execution chamber, and the state of Oklahoma carried out the sentence that had been imposed nearly 10 years earlier. Story 3. Alvin Uriel Goodwin III was born on December 27, 1963. He was born in the state of Ohio. His family later moved to Texas. Not much public information exists about his parents or whether he had siblings. His early childhood is not described in court records. Goodwin went to school in Texas. He did not enjoy school. He stopped going to classes when he was in the 10th grade. That means he left high school around the age of 15 or 16. He never earned a high school diploma. After leaving school, Goodwin needed to earn money. He worked as a carpenter. He also worked as a press operator. These were normal jobs that did not require a high school degree. He held these jobs for some time, but his work history was not steady. When Goodwin was a young adult, he began breaking the law. His first known criminal behavior involved cars and property. In 1982, he was convicted in Harris County, Texas. The convictions were for burglary and auto theft. A judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison. Goodwin did not serve the full 5 years. He was released on parole after only 11 months. That means he was allowed to leave prison early if he followed rules. His parole was granted in June 1983. He was sent to live in Galveston County under supervision. For a while, Goodwin stayed out of prison, but he did not follow all the rules of his parole. In March 1985, he broke the rules. At the same time, he committed a new crime. He was convicted of burglary again, this time in Walker County, Texas. The judge gave him a 2-year sentence. Goodwin went back to prison. He served 14 months of this new sentence. Then in May 1986, he was released again. This time he was released under mandatory supervision. That means the law required the prison to let him go after he served a certain amount of time. He was sent to Nueces County, Texas. After his release in May 1986, Goodwin was a free man. He had a criminal record. He had spent time in prison. He had been on parole and had violated it. But he was now living in Texas without being locked up. He was 22 years old. He had no permanent home or steady job that is recorded in public documents. Goodwin had a habit of carrying a gun. People who knew him later said he often had a .357 caliber pistol with him. He did not have a legal reason to carry this gun. He also continued to spend time with other people who had criminal records. One of those people was a friend named Billy Dan Aitkins Jr., who was also in his early 20s. Goodwin lived day by day in late 1986. He did not have a plan for his future. He moved between different towns in Texas. He did not have a steady paycheck. He needed money, but he did not want to earn it through regular work. Instead, he thought about taking money from other people. On November 30th, 1986, Alvin Goodwin was 22 years old. He was living in Texas. He had been out of prison since May of that year. He did not have enough money. He wanted to get money quickly. He talked with his friend, Billy Dan Aitkins Jr., who was 21 years old. They decided to visit a man named James Douglas Tillerson. James Douglas Tillerson was 20 years old. He lived alone in a mobile home in Conroe, Texas. Conroe is in Montgomery County. Tillerson worked at a tool company. He had received a $600 Christmas bonus from his job. He had already put that money into the bank. Goodwin and Aitkins did not know this. They thought Tillerson had the cash in his home. Between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. on November 30th, 1986, Goodwin and Aitkins drove to Tillerson's mobile home. They were in Aitkins' car. Before they went inside, They talked about what to do. They said they would either ask Tillerson for a loan or rob him. They decided to rob him. Goodwin brought a .357 caliber Magnum pistol with him. This was the same gun he often carried. Aikens also had a gun. They went to the door of the mobile home. Tillerson answered the door. Goodwin and Aikens forced their way inside. They pointed their guns at Tillerson. Aikens ordered Tillerson to sit in a chair. Then Aikens demanded money. Tillerson told them he did not have any money. He told them the truth. His bonus was already in the bank. But Goodwin and Aikens did not believe him. They began to search the mobile home. They turned things over and looked everywhere. They did not find any cash. They did find other things. They took Tillerson's VCR. A VCR is a machine that plays videotapes. They also took some videotapes. They found a small amount of cash, but not much. They were not satisfied. They decided not to leave Tillerson in his home. Goodwin and Aikens ordered Tillerson to go outside. They marched him to his own car. Then they made him get into Aikens' car instead. Aikens drove the car. Goodwin sat in the front passenger seat. Goodwin pointed his .357 Magnum pistol at Tillerson, who was in the back seat. They drove away from the mobile home. They drove to a wooded area. This was about 2.5 miles from Tillerson's trailer. The woods were near a road called Falmouth Road in Montgomery County. They stopped the car. They ordered Tillerson to get out. Then they ordered him to walk ahead of them into the woods. The three of them walked deeper into the trees. They kept walking until the woods became too dense. The trees and bushes were so thick that they could not go any further. They stopped. Aikens tried to shoot Tillerson first. He raised his gun and pulled the trigger, but the gun did not fire. Something was wrong with it. Aikens tried again. The gun still did not shoot. Then Goodwin raised his .357 Magnum pistol. He pointed it at Tillerson. He pulled the trigger. The gun fired. The bullet hit Tillerson in the arm. Tillerson fell to the ground. He was not dead. He was hurt and scared. He began to scream. He pleaded for his life. He cried out. Goodwin looked at Tillerson on the ground. Goodwin later said he was tired of hearing Tillerson scream and cry. So Goodwin raised his gun again. He aimed at Tillerson's head. He pulled the trigger a second time. The bullet hit Tillerson in the head. Tillerson stopped moving. He was dead. Goodwin and Aikens ran back through the woods to the car. They left Tillerson's body on the ground in the dense woods. They drove away. The next day, December 1st, 1986, something happened. Tillerson did not show up for work. His employer noticed he was missing. Someone also reported that things had been stolen from Tillerson's mobile home. Montgomery County Sheriff's deputies received a report of a theft at Tillerson's trailer. When they went to the trailer, they saw that it had been ransacked. They also learned that Tillerson had not been seen since the previous Sunday, November 30th. The police began to look for him, but they did not find his body right away. Also on December 1st, 1986, or shortly after, police pulled over a car for a traffic violation. In that car were Aikens, Goodwin, and 2 other men. The police searched the car. They found a .357 caliber pistol. They seized the gun. This was the same gun Goodwin had used to shoot Tillerson. But at this time, the police did not yet know about the murder. They took the gun as evidence of something else, or they kept it because it was found during a traffic stop. The connection to Tillerson would come later. In December 1986, while Tillerson was still missing, Goodwin committed another crime. He broke into a neighbor's apartment in Huntsville, Texas. He burglarized that apartment. This happened after the murder of Tillerson. Tillerson's body stayed in the woods for many weeks. No one found him. Animals and weather changed his body. He lay there while Goodwin went about his life. On January 17, 1987, a group of people were riding on trails in Montgomery County, Texas. They were trail riders. They were in a wooded area near Falmouth Road. That was the same area where Goodwin and Aikens had left Tillerson's body. The trail riders found a body on the ground. The body was decomposed. That means it had been there for a long time, and the weather had changed how it looked. The trail riders called the police. Montgomery County Sheriff's deputies came to the scene. They looked at the clothes on the body. They thought the body might be James Douglas Tillerson, who had been missing since November 30th, 1986. The body was taken to the Harris County Medical Examiner's office. The assistant medical examiner examined the body. He confirmed that the body was Tillerson. He also determined that Tillerson had been dead for about 1 month. The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head. There was also a gunshot wound to the right arm. The bullet had gone through the arm and exited at the forearm. Now the police knew for certain that Tillerson had been murdered. They also had the gun that had been seized during the traffic stop on December 1st or 2, 1986. That gun was a .357 caliber Magnum pistol. Ballistics tests were done. These tests compare bullets and gunshot residue to a specific gun. The tests showed that the gun seized from the car was the same gun that fired the bullets that killed Tillerson. The police also knew that Goodwin and Aikens were suspects. But they had to find them. By late January 1987, Goodwin and Aikens were no longer in Texas. They had traveled to Burlington, Iowa. In Iowa, they committed more crimes. They broke into several cars, houses, and garages. They were caught by Iowa police. As Goodwin ran from the Iowa police, he pointed a loaded pistol at one of the officers. That pistol had been stolen from a house in Burlington. Goodwin and Aikens were arrested in Burlington, Iowa, on charges unrelated to Tillerson's murder. This happened 4 days after Tillerson's body was found. So on or around January 21st, 1987, the two men were in jail in Iowa. Texas law enforcement officers learned of their arrest. They went to Iowa to question Goodwin. While Goodwin was in the Burlington jail, he was questioned by Texas Rangers and other officers. Goodwin agreed to talk. He gave a full confession. His confession was recorded on videotape. In that confession, he described exactly what happened on November 30th, 1986. He said he and Aikens went to Tillerson's trailer to rob him. He said they forced Tillerson into the car and drove to the woods. He said Aikens tried to shoot first, but the gun did not work. He said he then shot Tillerson in the arm and then in the head because Tillerson was screaming. This confession matched the physical evidence. Goodwin was also interviewed again after he was brought back to Montgomery County, Texas. He gave a written confession as well. Both confessions were used as evidence. While Goodwin was held in the Montgomery County Jail in January 1987, another inmate named Delbert Burkett was in the same cell. A newspaper article about Tillerson's murder was passed around. Goodwin read the article. Then he passed the paper to other inmates. Goodwin said to them that he had gone to Tillerson's trailer to steal a government check. He said he and an accomplice went in with guns. He said they forced Tillerson to sit on a couch while they took things. Then they took Tillerson into the woods. Goodwin said he shot Tillerson in the arm. Tillerson fell and pleaded and screamed. Goodwin said he was tired of Tillerson screaming, so he shot him in the head with a .357 pistol. Burkett heard Goodwin tell this story several different times. Burkett later testified about this in court. Goodwin was extradited back to Texas. That means he was legally transferred from Iowa to Texas to face charges. He was charged with capital murder. Capital murder is murder that happens during another serious crime, such as robbery or kidnapping. In this case, Tillerson was killed during a robbery and kidnapping. Billy Dan Aikens Jr. was also charged. Because Aikens had no prior felony convictions, he was not given the death penalty. He was convicted of burglary and murder with a deadly weapon. He received a sentence of life in prison. Goodwin's trial began in 1987. On July 30th, 1987, the jury found him guilty of capital murder. Then the same jury heard more evidence to decide on punishment. Texas law at that time used two special questions for the jury. The jury had to answer yes or no to whether Goodwin would be a future danger to society and whether he acted deliberately. The jury answered yes to both questions. The trial judge then imposed the death sentence on August 3, 1987. Goodwin appealed his conviction and sentence. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed or upheld the conviction on October 24, 1990. Goodwin then asked the United States Supreme Court to review his case. The Supreme Court denied certiorari, meaning it refused to hear the case, on June 28, 1991. Over the next several years, Goodwin filed many appeals. He filed state habeas corpus petitions. A habeas corpus petition is a request to be released because of a legal error. He filed his first state petition on November 6, 1991. It was denied on June 29, 1994. He filed a second state petition on November 4, 1994. It was denied on January 27, 1995. On February 27, 1995, Goodwin filed a federal petition for habeas corpus. A federal judge denied it on March 6, 1995. Goodwin appealed to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. That court partly reversed the decision on December 23, 1997. The court said that a lower court needed to hold a hearing on whether Goodwin had asked for a lawyer while in Iowa before he confessed. The hearing was held. The judge found that Goodwin did not ask for a lawyer before confessing. The judge also found that Goodwin's delay in raising this issue hurt the state's ability to know exactly what happened. On October 18, 1999, the district court again denied Goodwin's petition. Goodwin kept appealing. The Fifth Circuit affirmed the denial on August 17, 2000. On December 18, 2000, Goodwin filed another petition with the United States Supreme Court. This was his final appeal. Goodwin had been given multiple execution dates over the years. Court delays kept moving those dates. But by January 2001, his appeals had run out. On January 18, 2001, at about 6 p.m., Alvin Uriel Goodwin III was taken to the execution chamber in Huntsville, Texas. He was 37 years old. He declined to speak with reporters before his execution. He said goodbye in Gaelic. His last words included, "All right, Warden." The lethal injection drugs were given. He sputtered and grunted twice as he exhaled. He was pronounced dead at 6:22 p.m. Billy Dan Aitkins, Jr. remains in prison serving his life sentence. James Douglas Tillerson was 20 years old when he was killed. His body was finally found and laid to rest. The case was closed. Story 4. Dion Athanasius Smallwood was born on August 15, 1969. He was born in the United States. His family lived in Oklahoma. Dion was a black male. His parents raised him in a home with other family members. As a child, he went to school and tried to learn like other kids. When Dion was young, people noticed that his moods changed often. Some days he felt very happy and full of energy. Other days he felt very sad and tired. He had trouble controlling his feelings. This was a problem that stayed with him as he grew older. But at that time, no doctor told him or his family what was wrong. Many years later, doctors would call this condition bipolar disorder. But as a child and teenager, Dion did not get medicine or treatment for these mood swings. Dion went through school. He had friends. He also started dating girls when he became a teenager. He wanted to have normal relationships, but his mood problems made it hard for him to act calmly. He would sometimes get angry quickly. He would sometimes feel very low. His girlfriends saw these changes in him. After finishing school, Dion looked for work. He tried to live a normal adult life. He moved in and out of different homes. he continued to date. In January of 1991, Dion started a new relationship. The woman's name was Terry Jo Frederick. Terry was a young woman. She had been adopted by a woman named Lois Frederick. Lois was Terry's mother. Lois was 68 years old at the time when Dion started dating Terry. Dion and Terry spent a lot of time together. Their relationship was not peaceful. Dion would get angry and hurt Terry. He hit her. He choked her until she could not breathe. One time, he put a gun in her mouth and knocked out one of her teeth. Terry was scared of him, but she kept going back to him. She would leave him and then come back. They lived together on and off during most of the year 1991. Lois Frederick, Terry's mother, did not like Dion. Lois saw how Dion treated her daughter. She saw the bruises. She heard the fights. Lois wanted Terry to leave Dion for good. Lois told Terry that she was scared one day Dion would kill her. Lois made it very clear that she did not want Dion around her house. She did not want him near her daughter. About 1 month before the events that would come later, Terry moved back into her mother's home. She left Dion again. She also filed a protective order against him. This was a legal paper that told Dion to stay away from her. Dion was angry about this. He felt that Lois was the reason Terry left him. He blamed Lois for trying to keep them apart. Dion continued to have mood swings. He did not get help for his mental condition. He did not take medicine. He felt that Terry belonged to him. He told her many times that if she ever broke up with him for good, he would kill her family and her friends. Terry heard these threats. She was afraid of what Dion might do, but she still tried to stay away from him. On the day of February 5th, 1992, Dion woke up. He decided he wanted to see Terry. He knew she was living at her mother's house. He knew Lois did not want him there. He went to the house anyway. On the afternoon of February 5th, 1992, Dion Smallwood went to the home of Lois Frederick. The time was around 4 p.m. Lois was 68 years old. She was home alone. Her daughter Terry was not there. Dion did not have permission to enter the house. He knew Lois did not want him there. He walked inside anyway without knocking or being invited. When Lois saw Dion inside her home, she told him to leave. She grabbed his arm. She wanted to push him out or make him go away. Dion reacted by pushing her away from him. Lois fell backward and hit the floor. She got up. She told Dion that she would make him pay for what he was doing. Then she tried to call the police. She picked up her telephone to dial for help. Dion saw her with the phone. He grabbed the phone from her hands. He smashed it so she could not use it. Then he started searching the house room by room. He was looking for Terry. Lois followed him from room to room. She was still trying to stop him. During this search, Dion hit Lois in the face with his fist. She fell down again. Her nose started to bleed. They went into one of the bedrooms. Lois went into the bathroom that was attached to the bedroom. She washed the blood off her face. Then she came out of the bathroom. She kicked Dion in the shin. She was trying to defend herself. Dion saw a croquet mallet in the room. A croquet mallet is a wooden hammer used to hit balls in a lawn game. It has a long handle and a heavy round or square head. Dion picked up the mallet. He told Lois that he had no beef with her. This meant he did not have a problem with her personally. Lois then picked up a knife. She showed it to Dion. She was holding it in her hand. Dion swung the croquet mallet and hit Lois once on the head. He hit her very hard. The force of the blow made her dentures fly out of her mouth and across the room. Lois fell down. She was still alive but badly hurt. Dion heard her choking. He left her lying in the bedroom. He closed the door behind him. Dion thought he had killed her. He started to clean the house. He used a pair of Lois's socks to wipe blood off surfaces. He saw a large blood stain on the bed mattress. He turned the mattress over to hide the stain. He put some items into a trash bag. He took the bag to the garage. Then he went back to the bedroom. He wrapped Lois's body in the bedsheet and the bedspread from the bed. He carried her body out of the house and put it in the back seat of her own car. At around 6:30 p.m., Terry was on the phone with her aunt. Terry told her aunt that Dion was going over to kill Lois. The aunt then called 911. She asked the police to go check on Lois. The police went to Lois's house. An officer knocked on the door. Dion was still inside the house. He had already put Lois's body in the car. When he heard the police knock, he hid in a storage closet. The officer looked through the windows. He did not see anyone inside. The officer left without entering. After the police left, Dion got into Lois's car. He drove away from the house. He drove around for some time. He did not know what to do. He called a friend. He told the friend that he thought he had killed somebody. The friend refused to help him. Dion kept driving. He stopped at a gas station. He bought some gasoline. The gas station worker gave him a plastic container to put the gasoline in. Dion put the gasoline in the container. He drove to a rural area. He poured the gasoline around the outside of the car. He poured some on the front seat. He did not pour it directly on Lois's body, according to what he later said. Then he set the car on fire. The fire burned the car. Lois Frederick was still in the back seat. The medical examiner later determined that she died from a severe head injury combined with smoke inhalation. She was alive when the fire started. After setting the fire, Dion left the scene. He did not call for help. He did not tell anyone what he had done except the friend who refused to help him. After Dion Smallwood set the car on fire and left, other people saw the fire. Firefighters and police were called to the scene in Oklahoma City. They put out the fire. Inside the back seat of the burned car, they found a badly burned body. The police ran the car's license plate number. The car was registered to Lois Frederick. At the same time, the police were already looking for Lois. Her sister had called 911 around 6:30 p.m. on the same day. The sister reported that Lois might be in danger because of Dion Smallwood. Police had gone to Lois's house, but did not find anyone at that time. Now, with the burned car and the body, the two investigations came together. The body was identified as Lois Frederick. An autopsy was performed. The medical examiner ruled that the cause of death was a severe head injury and smoke inhalation. Terry Frederick, Lois's daughter, had already told the police on the day of the murder that Dion had threatened to kill her mother. She told the police that Dion said he would kill Lois if Terry did not meet him that day. This statement became an important piece of evidence. The police now had a suspect, Dion Smallwood. The police found Dion and arrested him. He was charged with murder. The case went to trial. At the trial, the prosecutors presented the evidence. They showed that Dion entered Lois's home without permission. They showed that he beat her with a croquet mallet. They showed that he put her body in her car and set the car on fire while she was still alive. Terry testified in court. She told the jury about the abuse she suffered from Dion. She told them about his threats to kill her family if she left him. Dion was found guilty of murder. On May 26, 1993, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection. After the sentence, Dion and his lawyers filed appeals. They tried to stop the execution. They argued that Dion had bipolar disorder and was mentally ill at the time of the crime. A psychologist named Dr. Patricia Fleming testified that Dion suffered from this condition. But the state's lawyers pointed out that other psychologists who examined Dion at the time of his trial did not find that he had the illness. The courts rejected the appeals. The Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board voted 4-0 against granting him clemency. On January 18, 2001, Dion Athanasius Smallwood was executed at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester. He was 31 years old. He was given a lethal injection. Before he died, he apologized to the victim's family. He said he was truly sorry. Terry Frederick watched the execution. She was there with her biological sister. After the execution, Terry said that his apology meant nothing to her. She said she would finally have peace knowing that he paid for what he did. Lois Frederick was 68 years old when she was killed. Her daughter Terry suffered from depression and guilt after her mother's death and tried to take her own life several times. Dion Smallwood's family also suffered. His 10-year-old daughter had to be told that her father might die. The execution was carried out at 9:09 p.m. Dion Smallwood became the 690th person executed in the United States since 1976 and the 34th person executed in Oklahoma since that year. No further appeals were filed after his death. Story 5. Mark Andrew Fowler was born on May 6, 1965 in Oklahoma. His mother was Caroline Fowler. His father was Jim Fowler. Mark was their son. He grew up in a regular home. His family was not wealthy, but they had what they needed. When Mark was still a young boy, his mother Caroline became very sick. She had cancer. The cancer did not go away. It got worse over time. Mark watched his mother suffer from this illness. He saw her become weaker and weaker. This was hard for him because he was just a child. He did not understand everything at first, but he knew his mother was dying. Caroline Fowler died from the cancer. Mark went to her funeral. He was sad. Losing his mother at a young age changed him. After Caroline died, Mark's father Jim felt alone. Jim later met a woman named Jim and got married, and became Mark's stepmother. Mark lived with his father Jim and stepmother in Oklahoma City. Mark went to school like other children. He was not known as a troublemaker when he was very young. He grew older and became a teenager. As a teenager, Mark started to change. He did not always follow rules. He began to spend time with friends who also did not follow rules. He was not a leader in school activities. He kept to a small group of friends. After finishing high school, Mark needed a job. He did not go to college right away. He worked at different places. One of his jobs was at a supermarket. This supermarket was called Wynn's IGA. It was in Edmond, Oklahoma. Edmond is a city near Oklahoma City. Mark worked there for some time. He did his job. He did not stay at that job for many years. He moved to other jobs. Mark had a habit of not staying in one place for too long. He would work for a while, then stop. He did not save much money. He lived day to day. He spent time with a friend named Billy Ray Fox. Billy Ray Fox was also a young man from the same area. Billy Ray had worked at the same IGA supermarket before. Billy Ray had been fired from that job. Mark knew this. The two men stayed close friends. They talked often. They spent time together in Oklahoma City and Edmond. Mark did not have a serious girlfriend. He did not have children. He lived with family or in small apartments. He was not violent in public. People who knew him said he was quiet sometimes. He did not yell or fight openly. But he did not have a steady plan for his life. He did not save money for the future. He borrowed money from family now and then. His father Jim worried about him. Jim wanted Mark to find a good job and settle down. Mark did not listen. Mark's stepmother and tried to be kind to him. Mark accepted her, but was not very close to her. He stayed closer to his father. Still, Mark did not tell his father everything. He kept secrets. He started to think about easy ways to get money. He did not want to work hard for low pay. He wanted more money faster. He talked about this with Billy Ray Fox. Billy Ray felt the same way. Billy Ray was angry that he had been fired from the IGA store. He knew the store well. He knew where the money was kept. He told Mark about the store layout, the employees, and the back room. Mark listened. He did not say no. He did not tell anyone else about these talks. He kept them between himself and Billy Ray. The two young men began to form a plan. They did not tell their families. They did not tell other friends. They just talked between themselves late at night or in private places. Mark had no criminal record before this time. He had never been arrested for a serious crime. He had no history of hurting people. But he was willing to follow Billy Ray's lead because he needed money. He was 20 years old in the summer of 1985. He was not in school. He was not working full-time. He was restless. He wanted a quick solution. His father, Jim, did not know about the plan. Jim thought Mark was still looking for regular work. Mark did not tell him the truth. Mark kept his thoughts hidden. He got up each day and acted normal. But inside, he was getting ready to do something very wrong. He just needed the right moment. And that moment came in early July of that year. On the night of July 2nd, 1985, Mark Andrew Fowler and his friend Billy Ray Fox got together. They had already talked about robbing the IGA supermarket in Edmond where Billy Ray used to work. Billy Ray had been fired from that store 6 months earlier. He was still angry about being fired. He knew the store's routine. He knew who worked the night shift. He knew where the money was kept. Mark agreed to go with him. The two men made a plan. They would go to the store late at night or early in the morning. That was when only a few employees were working. They would bring weapons. Billy Ray had a shotgun. Mark did not have a gun of his own. Billy Ray gave Mark a knife. The knife was large and sharp. Mark took the knife. He did not refuse it. He did not try to stop the plan. They waited until the early morning hours of July 3rd, 1985. They drove to the Wynn's IGA grocery store in Edmond. The store was still open. It was a 24-hour supermarket. Inside, 3 men were working. Their names were John Barrier, Rick Cast, and Chumpin Chawasan. John Barrier was 27 years old. He was a white male. Rick Cast was 33 years old. He was also white. Chumpin Chawasan was 44 years old. He was Asian. All 3 men worked the night shift. They were stocking shelves and cleaning the store. They did not know what was about to happen. Mark and Billy Ray entered the store together. It was dark outside. There were very few customers at that hour. The 2 men moved quickly. They did not go to the front counter first. Instead, they found the 3 employees one by one. Billy Ray was holding the shotgun. Mark was holding the knife. The first person they confronted was Rick Cast. Rick was the night manager. Billy Ray pointed the shotgun at him. He told Rick to move to the back room. Mark went to find the other 2 employees. He found John Barrier and Chumpin Chawasan. Mark pointed the knife at them. He told them to walk to the back room as well. The 3 employees did not fight back. They were surprised and scared. They did what they were told. Billy Ray and Mark herded all 3 men into a storage room at the back of the store. This room was not visible from the front. It had no windows to the outside. The door could be closed. Once all 3 victims were inside the back room, Mark closed the door. The 2 robbers now had complete control. Billy Ray told the 3 men to lie face down on the floor. They obeyed. They lay on their stomachs. They could not see what was happening behind them. Mark and Billy Ray stood over them. Then the violence began. Billy Ray used the shotgun. He shot Rick Cast in the head. The shotgun blast killed Rick Cast instantly. He was 33 years old. Next, Billy Ray shot Chumpin Chawasan in the head. Chumpin also died right away. He was 44 years old. Both men were killed execution style. That means they were on the ground, not moving, and the shooter aimed at their heads from close range. Now only John Barrier was left alive. He was still lying face down on the floor. But Billy Ray did not shoot him. Instead, Mark used the knife. Mark stabbed John Barrier. He did not stab him just once. He stabbed him 9 times. The knife went into John's neck, chest, back, and side. John Barrier was 27 years old. He was also hurt in another way. Someone hit him on the back of the head with the shotgun. It was either Billy Ray or Mark. The blow to the head was hard. It caused more injury. After the stabbing and the blow, John Barrier died. All 3 men were now dead. They lay face down in a large pool of blood on the floor of the back room. The blood spread out around their bodies. Mark and Billy Ray did not clean up. They did not call for help. They did not try to hide the bodies. After the killings, the two men took money. They went to the store's office and safe area. They took 200 in cash. They also took 200 in cash. They also took 500 in checks. The checks were from customers or store accounts. The total stolen was $2,700 in value. They put the money and checks in bags or their pockets. Then they left the store. They did not run. They walked out calmly. They got into their car and drove away. No one saw them leave. The store was mostly empty. Other employees were not working that night. The three victims were the only staff on duty. The bodies were not found right away. The store stayed open for some time after the killings. Customers could have walked in, but no one went to the back room. The room was closed off. The blood did not leak out to the front. Later that morning, a teenage girl came to the store. She was not a customer. She was someone who knew the employees or worked there. She went to the back room. She opened the door. She saw the three men lying face down. She saw all the blood. She screamed. She ran to get help. Someone called the police. But at that moment, Mark and Billy Ray were already gone. They had driven away hours earlier. They had the money. They had no arrest record. They thought they had gotten away with it. Someone did notice something strange at the time, but did not act right away. A few people in Edmond saw two young men acting nervous early that morning. But no one connected them to the store yet. The police had not been called to the crime scene until after the teenage girl found the bodies. So at the time Mark and Billy Ray left, no one was following them. The two men went back to places they knew. They did not leave the state. They stayed in or near Oklahoma City. They split the money. They thought no one would find out. The teenage girl who found the three bodies called the police right away. Officers arrived at the Wynn's IGA store in Edmond. They saw the blood and the three men lying face down. They confirmed that all three were dead. The police secured the scene. They called for detectives and crime scene investigators. The investigators looked at the bodies. They saw that Rick Cast and Chumpin Chawawasan had shotgun wounds to the head. They saw that John Barrier had stab wounds and a blow to the head. They collected evidence from the floor, the walls, and the back room. They found shell casings from the shotgun. They found footprints and other marks. They also checked the office area. They saw that money and checks were missing. They concluded that a robbery had taken place and that the three employees were killed during that robbery. The police started asking questions. They talked to people who knew the store. They learned that Billy Ray Fox had worked at that same IGA store before. They learned that he had been fired about 6 months earlier. The police thought this was important. A former employee knows the store layout, the routines, and where the money is kept. The police put Billy Ray Fox on their list of suspects. The police also talked to people who had seen two young men acting strange near the store that early morning. Witnesses gave descriptions of the men and their car. The descriptions matched Billy Ray Fox and Mark Andrew Fowler. The police did not wait long. On July 4th, 1985, one day after the murders, the police arrested both men in Edmond. They were taken into custody. They were questioned separately. During questioning, both men admitted that they had robbed the supermarket, but each man denied being the one who killed the three victims. Billy Ray Fox said that Mark Fowler did the killings. Mark Fowler said that Billy Ray Fox did the killings. Each blamed the other. The police did not believe either man alone could have controlled three healthy adult men. The evidence showed that both were involved in the murders. The police collected more evidence. The knife and the shotgun were found. Forensic tests linked the weapons to the crime scene. The stolen money was partly recovered. The checks were traced. The police also found that both men had talked about the robbery before doing it. Witnesses came forward who had heard them planning. The case went to trial. Mark Fowler and Billy Ray Fox were tried together in Oklahoma County District Court. The trial began in 1986. The prosecutors presented the evidence step by step. They showed that both men entered the store together. Both men carried weapons. Both men herded the victims into the back room. Both men were present when the victims were killed. The prosecutors argued that even if one man pulled the trigger or held the knife, the other man was equally responsible because he helped commit the robbery that led to the murders. The jury listened to all the testimony. On May 15, 1986, the jury found Mark Fowler guilty of murder. He was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder. The jury also found Billy Ray Fox guilty. On June 20, 1986, the jury sentenced Mark Fowler to death. Billy Ray Fox also received the death sentence. After the sentence, Mark Fowler began appealing. He asked higher courts to review his case. He filed appeals over many years. In 1989, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals ruled on his first appeal. The court upheld his conviction and death sentence. He filed more appeals. In 1994, and again in 1995, higher courts reviewed his case. Each time, the court said the conviction and sentence were correct. He also took his case to federal court. In 2000, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled against him. The United States Supreme Court refused to hear his case on October 10, 2000. After the Supreme Court refused to hear the appeal, the Oklahoma Attorney General asked the court to set an execution date. The court set the date for January 23, 2001. Mark Fowler's co-defendant Billy Ray Fox was given an execution date of January 25, 2001. Before the execution, Mark Fowler asked the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board for clemency. Clemency means mercy or a lesser punishment. On January 3, 2001, the board held a hearing. Mark Fowler apologized to the families of the victims. He said he was there and he was equally responsible. He did not deny his involvement. His family members spoke for him. His uncle, a Catholic priest, asked for mercy. The Archbishop of Oklahoma City also asked the board to spare his life. The board voted 4-0 to deny clemency. The governor did not stop the execution. On January 23, 2001, Mark Andrew Fowler was taken to the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester. He was 35 years old. He was put on a table in the death chamber. A needle was placed in his arm. Lethal injection drugs were given to him. The drugs stopped his breathing and then his heart. He was pronounced dead at 9:07 p.m. He became the 5th person executed in Oklahoma in 2001 and the 691st person executed in the United States since 1976. His parents, Jim and Fowler, witnessed the execution. Mark recited a prayer before he died. Some family members of the victims also came to watch. Linda Barrier, sister of John Barrier, had written that she waited 15 years for justice. Frank Cast, brother of Rick Cast, said their mother died waiting for the execution to happen. Billy Ray Fox was executed 2 days later on January 25, 2001. He also received lethal injection. The families of John Barrier, Rick Cast, and Chumpin Chawawasan finally saw the punishment carried out. The case was closed. The 3 victims were remembered as young men who worked nights and went to college during the day. Their lives were cut short. The 2 men who killed them received the death penalty under Oklahoma law. The story ends with Mark Fowler executed, his accomplice executed, and the 3 victims buried, leaving their families to grieve without the possibility of further legal action against the killers. Story 6. Billy Ray Fox was born on October 24, 1965, in Oklahoma. He was a white male. His family lived in a small town near the city of Edmond. His parents were hard-working people. They provided a good home for Billy and his siblings. People who knew the family said they were normal and respectable. Billy grew up like most children in his area. He went to school every day. He played with other kids in the neighborhood. There was no sign of major problems at home. His parents taught him right from wrong. He attended church sometimes, but he was not very religious. As a teenager, he became more independent and started spending more time with friends. In school, Billy was an average student. He did not get the best grades, but he also did not fail. He passed his classes and moved up each year. He had friends and was not known as a troublemaker. Teachers did not report any strange behavior. He finished high school around the age of 18. After graduation, he needed to find work. Billy got his first real job at a grocery store called Wynn's IGA in Edmond. The store was a normal supermarket. People came to buy food and other items. Billy started working there when he was 18 years old. He worked hard at first. The owner, Gordon Wynn, noticed that Billy was a good worker. Because Billy showed effort and learned quickly, he was given more responsibility. Over time, he was promoted to assistant manager. This meant he helped run the store and supervised other workers. As assistant manager, Billy had keys to the store. He knew how to open the doors, work the cash register, and open the safe. He knew where money was kept. He also knew the store's schedule. He knew when the night shift started and ended. He knew which employees worked late. All of this information came from his job. But after some time, Billy's work began to change. He started showing up late. He did not complete his tasks. He made mistakes that hurt the store. The owner, Gordon Wynn, saw that Billy was no longer a good worker. Wynn did not know why Billy changed. He only saw the results. Billy stopped caring about his job. Because of this, Gordon Wynn made a decision. He fired Billy from the grocery store. Billy was fired around 6 months before a certain date in July. He was 19 years old at the time. Being fired made Billy angry. He did not have a job anymore. He did not have money coming in. He had to find another way to pay for things he wanted. After losing his job, Billy spent more time with his friends. One of his close friends was a young man named Mark Andrew Fowler. Mark was about 1 year older than Billy. The two of them started spending many hours together. They drove around town. They talked about money and problems. Billy told Mark that he was angry at the store and at the owner for firing him. Billy did not look for a new job right away. Instead, he stayed at home or went out with Mark. He had no regular schedule. He had no boss telling him what to do. He had free time and no money. He also still remembered how the store worked. He remembered the layout, the locks, and where the money was kept. These memories stayed in his mind. He did not try to forget them. He did not try to move on and find honest work. He sat with his anger and let it grow. Billy also kept in touch with some people he knew from the store. He heard about the night employees. He knew their names: John Barrier, Rick Cast, and Chumpin Chawawasan. He knew they worked late. He knew the store was quiet at night. All of this information stayed with him. He did not use it right away, but he did not throw it away either. By the summer of 1985, Billy Ray Fox was a 19-year-old man with no job, no money, and a grudge against his former employer. He spent his days with Mark Fowler. They talked often. Their conversations became more serious over time. Billy started thinking about ways to solve his money problems. Billy Ray Fox had been fired from Wynn's IGA about 6 months before the events of July 1985. He did not find another job. He had no money. He was angry at the store and at the owner. He spent his days with his friend Mark Andrew Fowler. Mark was 20 years old. They talked about money problems. Billy told Mark that he still had keys to the store. He still had keys to the front door, the cash register, and the safe. He knew exactly where the money was kept. 2 days before the crime, Billy made a direct proposal to Mark. He said they should rob the grocery store. Mark agreed. Billy explained that because he used to work there as assistant manager, he knew the night shift schedule. He knew that only a few employees worked late at night. He knew there would be very few customers after midnight. He knew the back room was isolated. Mark listened and said yes. Billy and Mark did not own any weapons, so they stole shotguns from their roommates. Each of them took one shotgun. They did not buy new ammunition. They used what was already in the shotguns. They also did not buy masks or gloves. They planned to enter the store when it was dark and quiet. On the night of July 2nd, 1985, Billy and Mark got ready. They waited until after midnight. The date turned to July 3rd, 1985. They drove to Wynn's IGA in Edmond, Oklahoma. Billy used his old keys to open the front door. The keys still worked because the store had not changed the locks after he was fired. They entered the store while it was still open for business. It was late at night. The only people inside were the night employees. There were 3 employees working that night. Their names were John Barrier, Rick Cast, and Chumpin Chawawasan. John Barrier was 27 years old. He was a white male. Rick Cast was 33 years old. He was a white male. Chumpin Chawawasan was 44 years old. He was an Asian male from Taiwan. He was working toward a master's degree at the University of Central Oklahoma. All 3 men were students at the same university. They worked the night shift at the grocery store to pay for their education and living expenses. Billy and Mark carried their shotguns inside. They did not hide their faces. They moved quickly through the store. They found the 3 employees. Billy and Mark pointed the shotguns at the men. They ordered all 3 to go to the back room. The back room was used for storage and breaks. It was away from the front windows. No one outside could see or hear what happened there. The 3 employees had no choice. They walked to the back room because 2 armed men were pointing guns at them. Once all 3 victims were inside the back room, Billy and Mark closed the door. The victims were trapped. They had no weapons. There was no way to call for help. Billy and Mark then began to hurt them. They did not just tie them up or lock them in. They attacked them with the shotguns and other objects. First, Billy and Mark beat the victims. They used the shotguns as clubs. They hit the men on their heads and bodies. Then they did more violent acts. For Rick Cast, Billy or Mark shot him 1 time in the head with the shotgun. That single gunshot killed Rick Cast. For Chumpin Chawawasan, the same thing happened. He was shot 1 time in the head with the shotgun. That single gunshot killed Chumpin Chawawasan. Both of these victims died from execution-style shots. This means they were shot while helpless, probably on the ground or against a wall, with no chance to fight back. For John Barrier, the attack was different. John was not shot with a shotgun. Instead, he was stabbed 9 times. The knife went into his neck, chest, back, and side. He was also hit on the back of his head with a shotgun. This blow from the shotgun, used like a club, caused more injury. John Barrier died from the combination of stab wounds and the blunt force blow to his head. After all 3 men were dead, Billy and Mark did not leave right away. They searched the store for money. Billy used his knowledge of where the cash was kept. He opened the cash register. He opened the safe with his old keys. They took $200 in cash. They also took about $200 in cash. They also took about $500 in checks that customers had written. The total stolen was $2,700 in cash and checks combined. Then they left the store. They locked the door behind them using Billy's keys. They drove away. The 3 bodies were left lying side by side on the floor of the back room. There was a large pool of blood around them. The next morning, a 16-year-old girl came to work at the store. She was an employee. She entered the store and went to the back room. She found the 3 bodies. She saw the blood. She ran and called the police. But that discovery belongs to the next part of the story. What Billy and Mark did after the crime happened during the day on July 3rd, 1985. They did not hide or run away. Mark used some of the stolen money to pay off debts he owed to people. He also threw a party for his friends. He served steaks and other food that he had taken from the grocery store during the robbery. Billy used his share of the money to buy new clothes and jewelry. He went to a mall in Oklahoma City and spent money on luxury items. No one arrested them yet. No one suspected them yet. But the police would soon start looking. The 16-year-old girl who found the bodies on the morning of July 3rd, 1985, did not touch anything. She saw the three men lying on the floor. She saw the blood. She ran outside and called the police immediately. The Edmond Police Department received the call and sent officers to Wynn's IGA. When the police arrived, they entered the store. They went to the back room. They saw the bodies of John Barrier, Rick Cast, and Chumpin Chawawasan. The officers secured the area. They did not let anyone else inside. They called for detectives and crime scene investigators. The investigators took photographs. They collected the shotgun shells. They collected the knife. They looked for fingerprints. They measured the blood patterns. They wrote down everything they saw. The police noticed that the door locks were not broken. There was no forced entry. Someone had used a key to get inside. The police also noticed that the safe and cash register had been opened without damage. This meant the robber or robbers knew the combinations or had working keys. The police asked the store owner, Gordon Wynn, who had keys. Wynn told them that current employees had keys. He also told them that Billy Ray Fox, a former assistant manager who had been fired about 6 months earlier, had never returned his keys. This was the first clue. The police wrote down Billy Ray Fox's name. They also asked employees about anyone who might be angry at the store. Several employees mentioned that Billy had been fired and seemed upset. The police then started looking for Billy Ray Fox. They also asked about his friends. They learned that Billy spent most of his time with a young man named Mark Andrew Fowler. The police went to places where Billy and Mark were known to stay. They asked questions. On the same day as the murders, July 3rd, 1985, Billy went to a mall in Oklahoma City. He bought new clothes and jewelry with cash. He did not try to hide his face. He used a credit card or paid in large bills. Store employees later remembered him because he spent a lot of money quickly. Mark Fowler threw a party that afternoon. He served steaks and food that he had taken from the grocery store. He paid off debts to friends. Both men acted as if they had come into sudden wealth. That night, July 3rd, 1985, the police found Billy Ray Fox and Mark Andrew Fowler. They arrested both men. The arrests happened less than 24 hours after the murders. The police took them to the station. They read them their rights. Then the police asked questions. Both men were held in custody. During questioning, Billy and Mark gave different stories. Each admitted that they had robbed the grocery store together, but each said that the other person had committed the murders. Billy said Mark did the killing. Mark said Billy did the killing. The police did not believe either story. They looked at the evidence. 2 shotguns had been used. 2 people had entered the store. 2 people had herded 3 victims into a back room. The police concluded that both men participated in the killings. The district attorney filed charges. Billy Ray Fox and Mark Andrew Fowler were charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of robbery. They were held without bail. They were tried together in the same courtroom. The trial took place in Oklahoma County District Court. It started in early 1986. The trial presented the evidence step by step. The prosecution showed that Billy still had keys to the store. They showed that both men stole shotguns from their roommates. They showed that both men entered the store together. They showed that both men were present in the back room when the victims died. They showed that both men took money and then spent it the next day. Witnesses from the mall and from Mark's party testified about the spending. The medical examiner testified about the 9 stab wounds on John Barrier and the shotgun wounds to the heads of Rick Cast and Chumpin Chawawasan. The jury listened to all the evidence. They deliberated. On May 15, 1986, the jury found Billy Ray Fox guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. They also found him guilty of robbery. Mark Andrew Fowler was found guilty on the same charges at the same trial. The trial then moved to the penalty phase. The jury had to decide if Billy would receive life in prison or the death penalty. The prosecution argued that the murders were especially cruel. They pointed out that the victims were unarmed and helpless. They pointed out that John Barrier was stabbed 9 times. They pointed out that the other 2 were shot execution style. The defense tried to show that Billy was young and had no prior murder record. But the jury decided that death was the correct punishment. On June 20th, 1986, the judge sentenced Billy Ray Fox to death. Mark Andrew Fowler received the same sentence. Billy did not accept the sentence. He filed appeals. He first appealed to the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals. That court upheld his conviction and death sentence in 1989 in a case called Fox v. State, 779p.2d562. He appealed again to the same court in 1994. That appeal was also denied in Fox v. State, 880p.2d383. Then he took his case to federal court. He filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. The federal court denied his appeal in 2000 in a case called Fox v. Ward, 200f.3d1286. Finally, he asked the United States Supreme Court to hear his case. On October 10, 2000, the Supreme Court refused to hear the appeal. After the Supreme Court said no, the Oklahoma Attorney General requested execution dates for both Billy Ray Fox and Mark Andrew Fowler. The request asked that both men be executed on the same day to spare the victims' families from going through the trauma twice. The Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals set the dates. Mark Fowler was executed first. He died by lethal injection on January 23, 2001. Billy Ray Fox did not request a clemency hearing. He did not ask the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board to spare his life. No inmate in Oklahoma had ever received a favorable clemency vote since the death penalty was reinstated in 1977, but Billy chose not to even try. He also went on a week-long hunger strike earlier in January 2001 to protest the death penalty. But he did not file any emergency appeals to stop his execution. On January 25, 2001, Billy Ray Fox was taken to the death chamber at Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester. He was allowed to visit with family members through thick glass before the execution. He was offered a last meal. At first he said no, but then he changed his mind. He was served steak and chicken fajitas at noon. When asked if he had any last words, he said, "No." He smiled with his lips closed. The lethal injection was started. He lifted his head and smiled at relatives. Then his eyes became glassy. His head slowly fell. He was pronounced dead at 9:06 p.m. 3 members of Rick Cast's family watched the execution. Linda Barrier, sister of John Barrier, also watched. Frank Cast, Rick's brother, later said that Billy Ray Fox and Mark Fowler were mad dogs, and that the execution was the end of 15.5 years of grief. He asked people to pray for the souls of the 3 victims and said he hoped the killers' souls went directly to hell. The victims' families had waited more than 15 years for justice. John Barrier, Rick Cast, and Chumpin Chawawasan were all young men going to college to build better lives. They did nothing wrong. They were simply working late at a grocery store when 2 men with shotguns walked in. Billy Ray Fox died at age 35. He had spent nearly 15 years on death row. Mark Fowler had died 2 days earlier. Both men received the same sentence for the same crime. The case was closed. The 3 victims never returned home from work, and the 2 men who took their lives paid for those deaths with their own. Story 7. Carruthers Alexander was born on September 7, 1948. His family called him Gus. He was a black male. He grew up in Texas, but the specific details of his childhood home are not widely recorded. He lived in Houston for part of his early adult life. As a young man, Gus got into trouble with the law. In 1972, he was convicted of arson. Arson means setting fire to a building on purpose. He received a sentence of 2 years in prison. He served only 7 months of that sentence. Then he was released. 3 years later, in 1975, Gus was convicted again. This time the crime was involuntary manslaughter. That means he caused someone's death, but not on purpose. The death happened because of a reckless or careless action by Gus. He received a sentence of 3 years in prison. He served only 10 months of that sentence. Then he was paroled. Parole means he was released early, but had to follow rules set by the state. After his parole in 1975, Gus tried to live a normal life. He found work and stayed away from people he thought might lead him into more trouble. He lived with a woman who was his common-law wife. A common-law marriage means they lived together as husband and wife without a formal wedding. His wife had 2 children from a previous relationship. Gus also helped support his wife's niece. He worked hard at his job. He did not want to go back to prison. Gus got a job as a delivery van driver. His employer was a company called Abbey Medical. The company had white vans with blue lettering on the sides. Gus was assigned to drive one of these vans. He often took the van home with him after work. His employer allowed this. By 1981, Gus was 32 years old. He had a criminal past, but he had not been in prison for 6 years. He lived in San Antonio, Texas. He worked regularly. He supported his family. However, his past convictions for arson and involuntary manslaughter remained on his record. On the evening of April 22, 1981, Gus finished his work as a delivery van driver for Abbey Medical. He took the white company van home with him, as he often did. The van had blue lettering on its sides. The letters started with A, or AB, on the first line, and the word medic, or medical, on the second line. Later that night, a 19-year-old woman named Lori Brook went to work. She was a waitress at a nightclub in San Antonio. Lori was married and had a 2-year-old child. She worked her shift at the club. After the club closed, she and some other employees went to eat at a nearby restaurant. They finished eating. Then Lori left the restaurant alone. The time was approximately 4 o'clock in the morning on April 23, 1981. Lori got into her car and started driving home. The weather was rainy. The rain had made some roads wet and flooded. At the same time, Gus was driving the white Abbey Medical van on the same streets. He saw Lori's car. He decided to stop her. He used his van to collide with her car from behind. The front bumper of the van hit the right rear bumper and tail light of Lori's car. The impact caused damage to both vehicles. White paint from the van transferred onto the back of Lori's car. The damage on Lori's car started 18.5 inches above the ground. The bottom of the van's front bumper was also 18.5 inches above the ground. This meant the 2 vehicles matched at the point of impact. After the collision, Lori's car was found abandoned at a low water crossing. That means a part of the road where water flows over it when it rains. Her handbag was still in the front seat. The windows of her car were open, even though it was raining heavily. Gus got out of his van. He approached Lori. He forced her out of her car. He took her to his van. He used ropes to tie her wrists and her ankles. He also put a gag into her mouth. A gag is something placed in a person's mouth to stop them from screaming. He wrapped a piece of cloth around her head to hold the gag in place. Then he drove the van to another location. Inside the van, Gus raped Lori. The sexual intercourse happened within 2 to 3 hours before she died. After the rape, Gus used another piece of rope. He wound this rope tightly around Lori's neck. He pulled it hard. The rope cut off her air. She died from ligature strangulation. That means she was strangled using a rope or cord as the tool. The rope was so tight that bruising from Gus's knuckles appeared on the back of her neck. After Lori was dead, Gus took off all her clothes. Her body was nude. He left her body lying in a street near an elementary school called Flower Mound School. The body was in a rain-filled gutter. He left her jewelry on her body. She was still wearing her wedding ring, her engagement ring, another gold ring, and one earring. The other earring was missing. Gus then drove the van away. He left Lori's damaged car at the low water crossing. He did not report the collision to anyone. He went home. Later that morning, at approximately 6:30 a.m., 2 witnesses saw a large white van parked on a street in San Antonio. They noticed the blue lettering on the side of the van. They saw that the lettering started with A, or AB, and included medic, or medical. This van was the same one Gus had been driving. Approximately 15 minutes after the witnesses saw the van, 2 elementary school children were walking to school. They arrived at Flower Mound School. They saw the nude body of a woman lying in the street. It was Lori. The children did not touch the body. Someone called the police. When police arrived, they saw that Lori's wrists and ankles were tied with rope. A gag was in her mouth. A cloth was wrapped around her head. Another rope was wound tightly around her neck. They also saw the one earring still on her body. Her wedding ring and other rings were still on her fingers. An autopsy was performed later. The doctor found a small stab wound on the right side of Lori's neck. The stab wound was not deep. The doctor also found a scrape on her right cheek and a scratch near her right eye. There were rope burns on her wrists, ankles, and neck. There was bruising on the back of her neck. The doctor confirmed that she had recently had sexual intercourse. She had died within 30 to 90 minutes after finishing her last meal. The cause of death was ligature strangulation. A single strand of hair that was not Lori's was found on her body. At the time the body was found, no one knew who had done this. But the witnesses who saw the white van gave a description to the police. The police began looking for a white van with blue lettering from a medical company. The police had a description of the white van from the 2 witnesses who saw it parked near the school at 6:30 a.m. The witnesses remembered the blue lettering on the side. The lettering started with A or AB and had a word like medic or medical. Police officers went looking for a van that matched this description. They found a white delivery van owned by Abbey Medical. The van was assigned to Carruthers Alexander, who was called Gus. The van had blue lettering on the side that read Abbey Medical, or a similar phrase. The police examined the van. They saw recent damage on the front bumper. There was white paint on the bumper that did not belong to the van. The police compared this paint to the paint on Lori Brooks' damaged car. The paint matched. The officers also took measurements. The damage on Lori's car started 18.5 inches above the ground. The bottom of the van's front bumper was also 18.5 inches above the ground. This matched exactly. Inside the van, the police found a moving pad. A moving pad is a thick blanket used to protect furniture during transport. There were stains on this moving pad. The stains appeared to be semen. There were also small traces of blood on the pad. The police also found one of Lori's earrings inside the van. They found her belt inside the van as well. The police spoke to Gus's employer at Abbey Medical. The employer confirmed that Gus had taken the van home on the night of April 22nd and early morning of April 23rd. The police then questioned Gus. He told them he did not know how the van got damaged. He said no one else could have used the van that night. He insisted he was the only person who had access to the van. When homicide detectives confronted Gus at his workplace a few days after the murder, people who were present saw that Gus appeared shocked, startled, or anguished. His face showed strong emotion. Later, when the police told Gus that Lori's missing earring had been found inside his van, Gus became physically ill. He felt sick to his stomach. The police arrested Gus for the murder of Lori Brooke. He was charged with capital murder. Capital murder means murder that happens at the same time as another serious crime. In this case, the other crime was aggravated rape. Gus went to trial. In October 1981, a jury found him guilty of capital murder. The jury sentenced him to death. However, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals reviewed the case. In 1987, the court reversed the conviction. That means they threw out the guilty verdict. The reason was an error during the first trial. Specifically, the prosecution had asked Gus questions that were not allowed under the rules of evidence. The court ordered a new trial. Gus was tried again in 1989. The second trial began on April 26, 1989. A new jury heard the evidence. The prosecutors presented the same facts about the van, the paint, the earring, the belt, and the moving pad. They also presented the hair fragment found on Lori's body. The jury found Gus guilty of capital murder again. Then came the punishment phase. The jury had to decide between two options, death or life in prison. The prosecutors told the jury about Gus's past convictions. He had been convicted of arson in 1972. He had been convicted of involuntary manslaughter in 1975. The jury answered two special questions according to Texas law. The jury said yes to both questions. This meant the judge had to sentence Gus to death. He received the death sentence again in 1990. Gus appealed his second conviction. In 1993, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed the conviction and sentence. That meant they agreed the trial was correct. Gus then asked the United States Supreme Court to review his case. In 1994, the Supreme Court refused to hear it. Gus then filed other legal requests, including a state habeas corpus petition and a federal habeas corpus petition. All of these were denied. In the year 2000, Gus was scheduled to be executed 3 different times. Each time, the execution was stopped because of legal filings. In July 2000, a judge stopped the execution 1 week before it was set to happen. The reason was that new DNA testing technology was available. The judge agreed with both the prosecutors and Gus's lawyers that a hair found on Lori's body should be tested using modern methods. The hair fragment was sent to the Department of Defense Armed Forces Institute of Pathology for DNA testing. On December 27, 2000, the institute issued a report. The report said that the DNA sequence from the hair was consistent with the DNA sequence of Carruthers Alexander. This meant the hair found on Lori's body came from Gus. After this DNA result, the judge set a new execution date for January 29, 2001. No more legal appeals were pending. On January 29, 2001, Gus was 52 years old. He was taken to the execution chamber in Huntsville, Texas. He was asked if he wanted to make a final statement. He declined to say anything. He was strapped to a gurney. The lethal injection drugs were administered. As the drugs entered his body, a single tear ran down his left cheek. He coughed loudly and gasped several times. At 6:18 p.m., he was pronounced dead. Gus became the 3rd person executed in Texas in 2001 and the 242nd person executed in Texas since 1976. Lori Brooks' family released a statement after the execution. They said that their family and friends had lost so much. They said countless other lives Lori would have touched were also lost. They said the execution marked the end of a very long and tragic chapter. They said they were relieved it was over. They said justice for Lori had finally been done. They said they loved her then, they loved her now, and they would love and miss her forever. The story of Carruthers Alexander ends with his death by lethal injection on January 29, 2001.